A week ago, we told you about a deadly dog-on-dog attack at the Jacobson Park Dog Park. There is now a pending court case.
WKYT's Mariah Conjito spoke with Animal Care and Control, who explained the risks with dog parks and why it's important that you keep close watch.
Lexington Fayette Animal Care and Control says the owner was charged with a nuisance created by animals charge. This means they're responsible for a minor to severe injury to a domesticated animal or to a human.
Dog parks have an assumed risk.
When it comes to dog parks, Lieutenant Jai Hamilton says it's not a place where you figure your dog's behaviors out.
The dog park is a place where you already know your dog is safe for others and that your dog enjoys being there.
Hamilton says it's up to you to pay attention to the signals your animal is giving.
That could be a dog that obviously does not want to be around other dogs, or is showing signs of like cowering or licking its lips, or any signs of stress. You should take your dog out of the park.
In the most recent deadly dog attack, the owner of the dog who died told WKYT the larger dog was fixated on hers. Her dog ended up being attacked and later died of his injuries.
Not every dog is going to be comfortable at a dog park. So some dogs are overwhelmed, or they have pretty extreme prey drive or some aggressive tendencies.
So how did they locate the owner of the dog responsible for the attack? Well, it was largely due to the help of witnesses and tips.
We were able to make contact with that person, and we have charged them, and they do have a court case pending.
The city of Lexington says many of their parks, including Jacobson Park, don't have cameras. They say with so much ground to cover, they can't possibly have them everywhere. In a statement, they said, quote, "While at our parks, we always recommend people take time to review all posted signage, follow any applicable rules, and use their best judgment." Hamilton says they get numerous calls and complaints at the area dog parks.
We only would go out there, say, if we had a complaint that there was a bite. We do patrol all the parks pretty regularly.
Hamilton says it's up to the judge to determine if they'll be issuing a fine and or deeming that dog vicious. In Lexington, Mariah Conjito, WKYT.